So today we're going to dive into one of the most essential processes for all life, respiration. And believe me, it is so much more than just breathing. It's this incredible, intricate chemical dance that unlocks the energy locked away in food, powering literally every single thing a living organism does. Let's get right into it.
Okay, so let's kick things off with a question that, on the surface, seems pretty simple. We all know we have to breathe to live, right? But why? What's really going on with every single breath we take? The answer to that question takes us on a journey way down from our lungs to the microscopic level to some of the most amazing cellular machinery you can imagine.
And here it is, the core of it all. It's called cellular respiration. And this is happening right now, inside basically every cell in your body, and in the cells of every plant, every animal, every single microbe on the planet. It's all about taking food, systematically breaking it down, and converting that stored chemical energy into a form that the cell can actually use. All right, this kicks off our first section, the quest for energy. Think of this as an epic journey. We're going to follow a single molecule of food as it gets transformed from a simple sugar into the universal fuel that powers all of life as we know it. You know, every great story has a hero, right? Well, in our story, that hero is the glucose molecule. Now, for plants, this hero is born from just sunlight, water, and carbon dioxide through the absolute magic of photosynthesis. You can think of it as a tiny, perfectly stable battery, just jam-packed with the sun's energy. But here's the thing. The cell can't just, light a match to that glucose battery. An explosion of energy all at once would be totally useless and probably destroy the cell. So the genius of respiration is that it's a masterpiece of control. It carefully disassembles that glucose molecule, piece by piece, releasing that stored energy in small, totally manageable packets. And what does the cell do with those little energy packets? It uses them to build this molecule right here, ATP. You absolutely have to think of ATP as the cell's energy currency. Glucose, our hero, is like a big, heavy gold bar, super valuable but not very practical for everyday shopping. ATP, on the other hand, is like cash. It's ready to be spent anywhere, at any time to power absolutely everything, from making your muscles contract to building brand new cells. So, our glucose molecule is ready to give up its energy. It arrives at the very first stage of the process. You can think of it as a kind of metabolic toll gate that every single living organism on Earth uses. It's a process called glycolysis. And this first stage, glycolysis, literally just means sugar splitting. It all happens out in the cell's main fluid, the cytoplasm, and get this, it doesn't need any oxygen at all. This is an ancient, ancient pathway. It's the same in you, in me, in a tiny bacterium, or a giant redwood tree. And the result is pretty simple. Our one big glucose molecule gets split clean in half into two smaller molecules called pyruvate. Now, what's really interesting is that the cell actually has to spend a little bit of energy just to get this whole process started. But by the end, it comes out on top. It makes this small but immediate net profit of 2 ATP molecules. Now, that's not a lot, but hey, it's a start. And for some organisms, that's all the energy they're going to get. Okay, so after glycolysis, our two brand new pyruvate molecules arrive at this major fork in the road. And the path they take next depends completely on one single factor. Is oxygen around or not? And the two possible fates, well, they are wildly different. If there's no oxygen, the cell is forced down the anaerobic path, which is basically fermentation. It's an incomplete breakdown and you get no more ATP out of it. Bummer. But if oxygen is present, the cell can take the aerobic path. This leads to the complete breakdown of the molecule for a massively higher energy payoff. And you can bet that's the high energy path we're going to follow. So by taking that high reward aerobic path, our pyruvate molecules get a special ticket, an entry pass into a really exclusive part of the cell. They're about to be transported from the general cytoplasm into the cell's dedicated energy factory, the powerhouse. And that place is the mitochondrion. You've probably heard of it, right? It's famously called the powerhouse of the cell. And this is where the main event really happens. Inside this tiny organelle, our pyruvate is going to be systematically taken apart to release the vast, vast majority of the energy it's been holding on to. So once inside, the first thing that happens is our pyruvate gets converted into a new molecule called acetyl-CoA. And that's what enters what's known as the Krebs cycle.
You can kind of think of this cycle as a metabolic furnace. It spins around and completely breaks down that acetyl-CoA. Its most important job, though, is to strip off high-energy electrons and load them onto these special energy taxi molecules called NADH and FADH2. These taxis are going to carry that energy to the final stage. And the leftover carbon atoms, that's the CO2 we breathe out. Okay, hold on a second. We've been talking about aerobic respiration this whole time, which means with oxygen, right? So where is the oxygen in all this? We just went through the Krebs cycle and didn't mention it once. And here's the really surprising part. Oxygen's incredibly important job. It doesn't happen until the very, very end of this whole assembly line. So remember those energy taxi molecules we talked about, NADH and FADH2? Well, they've picked up their precious cargo of high-energy electrons, and now they arrive at the final destination, the electron transport system. This is just a series of proteins all lined up in the inner membrane of the mitochondrion, working together like a super sophisticated assembly line. So here's the deal. The taxis drop off their high-energy electrons at the start of the chain. Then those electrons get passed from one protein to the next down the line. It's exactly like passing buckets of water down a line of people in a bucket brigade. And every single time the electron is handed off, a little bit of energy is released. So what's the point of all this energy being released in little bits? What's it for? Well, it's used to do one super important job. It powers these proteins to pump protons across that inner membrane. This builds up a huge concentration of protons on one side, creating this powerful gradient. It's just like water building up behind a massive dam. And that stored potential energy, that is the real secret to making a ton of ATP. And that brings us to the grand finale of our story. All that energy we've been carefully harvesting from that one little glucose molecule, it's about to be cashed in, big time. That proton dam is just about ready to burst. I mean, just take a second to really look at this comparison. It's wild. That anaerobic path, fermentation, only gave us a tiny net profit of 2 ATP. But the full aerobic path, it can generate up to a staggering 38 ATP from that very same glucose molecule. The difference in efficiency is it's absolutely incredible. So there it is. That's the big number, up to 38 molecules of ATP. From one single molecule of glucose, the cell has manufactured all this energy currency. This is the fuel that will power everything the cell needs to do. And it's all thanks to that controlled, step-by-step breakdown that we just followed. But wait, the story isn't quite over, because this whole pathway, it's not just a one-way street for demolition. Let's zoom out for a second and see what's really going on, the bigger picture. You see, biologists have a fancy name for this. They call it an amphibolic pathway. Amphi just means both, and that's because this pathway is involved in both breaking things down, that's catabolism, and building things up, anabolism. The very same molecules spinning around in the Krebs cycle can actually be pulled out of the cycle and used as the raw building blocks to make fats, proteins, and all sorts of other essential stuff. And this all leads us to a really fascinating, kind of mind-bending question. If the exact same pathway is used to both tear things apart for energy and to build new things from scratch, where does one process really end and the other begin? It shows that respiration isn't just about demolition. It's the absolute central hub of the cell's entire economy. It really makes you wonder, in the constant, beautiful flow of life's chemistry, where does anything truly start or stop?